Hey, this is Joe Bartnick, and welcome to Bert Sugarman's Midnight Special Podcast. We are happy to be building a community here on the channel of music lovers and hope you can join us in sharing stories and just having an appreciation of the greatest music that ever existed. But we may be a little biased, right? My producer, Mike Nell, co-host, great friend.
Is it considered biased if it's a fact that some of the best sounds ever came from the 70s? I'd say I don't know. I don't know if we're biased. I think it just might be a statement.
You know, it is. It's a fact. But what's great about this show is it's not just sounds from the 70s. It sounds from the 50s and the 60s. And on this show, we have a band from the 60s that was still kicking butt when I was listening in the 70s and 80s, and just they basically invented the power chord. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we got the Kinks. Yeah.
That was all of Joe's distortion.
I've been distorted, Mike. I've been distorted.
Nobody cut his speaker open, though. All right, well, let's get into another episode. We want to start, as always, with some of the top comments from our most recent podcast, which was our Tina Turner episode. So we're going to start off with Stephanie Jean, and she's one of our regulars. She comments on almost everything we post on the channel. So thank you so much for that continued support. It's been like over a year now, and I can always wake up and see a post about how she feels about the songs. And it's part of the community that I look forward to seeing that we've built here.
Stephanie, you must love this episode with the Kinks because there's some great stuff this week.
Yes. So thanks, gentlemen. I love Tina, and especially her solo work in the 80s. Like you said, some iconic songs during that time. She was amazing. Great fan stories, too. The guy who got to dance with her was awesomely lucky. You mentioned the Patty Hearst story. I remember the SLA kidnapping well. There was, in the end, a shootout on the streets with the LAPD. It was shown live on TV. Crazy at that time. Strange story.
It's funny, as a kid, I remember the Patty Hearst saga. Walter Cronkite every night would be like, it's been 21 days since Patty Hearst was abducted, you know, and then they have the live footage. It's pretty crazy times, man.
Yeah, and that's getting into such like regular 24-hour news almost. Like news became, I don't want to say entertainment, but you're really glued to the TV in those situations to see what was happening.
It was like a scandal. I mean, rich people make scandals, and one of the richest people ever, their daughter gets kidnapped or whatever happened. I don't even know. We'll save that for another podcast. All right, here we go. At T Houston 0 in 67. Dad bought me tickets to see Ike and the Tina Turner review. His date couldn't make it, and he asked me if I wanted to go with him. I was 16 years old. Ike and Tina review played Lakeside Palladium. The Palladium was part of an amusement park here in Dayton. That just sounds awesome. A lot of famous black entertainers played there. The setup was like a club with tables and chairs. We had a table right by the stage. The band does a couple of numbers with Ike, and then Ike announces Tina. She runs out and starts a song. As she was singing, she looked down at me and saw me singing while looking at me. There's nothing like when you see the performer make eye contact with you. I mean, I said on the first episode, I think Angus Young basically looked at me and they were like, "Whoa!" And he's Angus. If Tina Turner looked at me, I'd melt.
Oh yeah, that's a bit of a superpower there. Well, we also got a little shout out from the Tina Turner blog, and we thank you for your appreciation. She said, "Thank you for honoring our queen, Tina."
Yes. Oh, look at the little heart love sign. That's fantastic.
We also got our first round of old school cool submissions from our fans. So thank you, everybody. These are from Robert Matlock, and these are pictures of Air Force basic training, June 1st, 1978, waiting on getting their haircuts.
Oh, my God. Look at that fun. These poor kids, and they all got some nice heads of hair, Mike. I mean,
I've seen this moment only reenacted in films, like In the Army Now with Pauly Shore and stuff like that.
But, Full Metal Jacket, which is a great Christmas movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it looks like Hall & Oates or Baba Booey's getting his hair cut right there.
We're going to have a couple different sessions. He sent in so many great pictures. We also have some pictures that he took from his Air Force photography school, November 6, 1978. He and a classmate snuck behind a speaker and took pictures for the first half of a Bob Dylan concert. They got caught at intermission, but they already had 2 rolls apiece of some great pics. So check these out.
Oh, that's a fab. That is Mr. Dylan, Mr. Zimmerman in action. That is a great shot right there, guy. And then there, oh, look at it. That's a great phase of Dylan, too. That's like 70s Blood on the Tracks. That's like motorcycle Dylan.
Yeah, it looks like maybe he has got a leather jacket with the light reflecting off of it for any of our audio-only listeners. Yeah, such a good little set. And these feel so behind the scenes. I feel as if there's a hand on your shoulder right about to yank you out of this scene.
Yeah, that's a little, unless you have a really good zoom, that's a little close for anybody.
Right?
Like, are you playing guitar with Dylan? I mean, you're right there. It's funny, though, he went to Air Force photography school. What a way to do it. I mean, you talk about checking the right box. Like, you're not really going into war. Air Force photography. That's pretty cool. Learning a trade.
One of the things that I saw going through your pictures, Rob, was the appreciation I instantly got of, we have our phones and just take pictures of everything now. But it's probably difficult to ask every episode, oh, give us your pictures, give us your pictures. It's like, Mike, we weren't all carrying around cameras at every show, holding them up, filming the whole concert. That wasn't the 70s, Bubba. Yeah.
Right, exactly. No one's carrying around, like, especially cameras in those days were huge.
Mm-hmm,
that was almost before the Polaroids even.
So that's even more of an incentive and reason to send them in, because these types of pictures, we're not going to have many, and it's an archive that we're basically digitizing the future. So send them to us at the Midnight Special Podcast at gmail.com, and we'll get them up here. And Robert, thank you, and we look forward to sharing some more of these gems on later episodes.
Hey, Robert, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your Air Force plane, or not trying to be the wind beneath your wings, but those are some great shots. You can see those shots in Rolling Stone. I mean, you can tell you learned your trade at the Air Force.
Yeah, these are great stuff, and there's more stuff that he's been taking. Like, he's got pictures from his youth group growing up, some of his brother. He sent us a collection of stuff, and clearly photography's been a passion of his, and it's great to have.
Well, if he has any pictures of Tina Turner, he can send those.
Yeah, you might want to license those at Getty or something, make some coin. So thanks for those pictures, and we'll now hop in the time machine and go back to June 7th, 1974, episode 71, when the Kinks hosted. Gas was a good 53 cents a gallon, and you might have been putting it into a Ford Pinto, which was the top-selling car that year.
Yeah, there's tons of Pintos out on the road. We actually had the Duster, which is the cheap version of the Pinto. The Pinto was an upgrade from the Duster. But yeah, I remember sitting in the backseat of a car that size. Yeah, funny stuff.
I just love the body style and classic looks to these. Like, even what was like the regular compact cars of the generation and things, like, they just look so sleek and so different, and it just looks so classic compared to the cars now.
And they were real steel.
There you go.
That's what made it fabulous.
Yeah, except when a little fender bender happened, and then yeah.
Well, the Pinto, was not good at fender benders, at least from the back.
Yeah, steel. The fenders don't bend much. So other things that happened this week, famous filmmaker, Star Wars legend David Filoni was born, as well as Bear Grylls, star of many of the outdoor adventure shows you see on TV.
Wow, I love Bear Grylls. He's one of my all-time favorite shows to watch, Man vs. Wild. I don't care if he goes and gets tea in the afternoon at the hotel. He's done some stunts that have been incredible.
I like to watch him from the hotel while getting tea. That's about as close as I get.
Yeah.
The number one song at the time was Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings.
Yeah, that song really brings me back to my childhood, because that was on the radio. That really was. Sometimes some weeks we're here and I'm like, I don't remember that song. Band on the Run, I completely can hum and sing, and the band. Now I've done humming, and of course I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah, I won't harmonize with you on that one. We're going to spare everybody. Sly and the Family Stone frontman Sly Stone was married to model actress Kathy Silva at Madison Square Garden.
Well, that's a pretty good place to get married at. I was lucky enough to do comedy at the Garden, but I got married at the Punchline in San Francisco. So I guess
there's expensive weddings, but I wonder what that venue runs.
Right. Well, at least beer wasn't expensive as it is at the Knick games.
Yeah, well, speaking of ball game beers, maybe they were lucky and had 10-cent beer night like they had in Cleveland that week. And lucky, I mean disastrous, because it was the last time they ever had 10-cent beer night, because the Cleveland Indians were forced to forfeit the game when drunk fans overtook the field in the 9th inning of a 5-5 tie.
That is the most exciting ninth inning I've ever seen in a baseball game. A brawl. You know, it's a brawl when they can't even get everybody off the field. They have to call the game.
And it wasn't even just the ninth inning. By the second inning, there were already streakers running across the field. Like, it was an absolute nightmare.
What's funny is in those days, 10 cents was very cheap, but there was a lot of 10-cent beer nights around. I just think having 60,000 people enjoying 10-cent beer makes the difference. It was the Cowboys versus the Indians.
Yeah. A lot of Cowboys in that outfield. No Angels in that outfield.
No Angels in that outfield. Not in Cleveland.
Oh. All right. Well, the number one movie at the box office that week was The Sting, directed by George Roy Hill, starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford and Robert Shaw.
What a great movie. It's one of those movies that you think like, well, people are just smarter than you. Like the plot.
Yeah. That poker hand, like, it's just one of the great scenes.
Yes. And just iconic great actors. I mean, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah. And I always remember Robert Shaw from Jaws giving that speech about the Indianapolis and the sharks. And he's a great actor. Everyone in that film's just legends.
Right. And, it was, when I was a little kid, it was like, it's an old-timey movie, but it's so interesting.
Right. And those scenes, like, people have just ripped them off from decades. Like, you see movies and it's like, oh, they're just doing The Sting. Like, that's all this is.
Right.
Yeah. It's just repeats of other great masterpieces.
No, what a great movie. And it's actually aged well. Like, yeah. I just watched this thing a couple of years ago, and it was, in a hotel room.
Classics hold up. That's why they're classics.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to start a new segment. Instead of me trying to talk history as if I was there, we're going to talk history to me, because there's a lot of people like me who need to know some of the best facts about these bands. So we're going to put together 10 facts about the Kinks that everyone needs to know for basic history.
Mike, I think this is so exciting, because instead of just us reading like we're doing a book report like some nun made me do, this is just like 10 fun facts that you can throw out at a cocktail party or at a Christmas party, or just to have in the back of your head when you hear the next time you hear a Kinks song on the radio.
Or for guys like me who weren't around when the Kinks were around. Like, some of us genuinely need to catch up. There's kids in school right now whose first exposure to this might be through the Midnight Special, and we're going to collect these facts. And you guys in the comments can add some of the facts of 11 through 20 to the list. We look forward to hearing more great information about the Kinks.
That's a great idea. Almost like an addendum.
Yeah.
Like we can find out, like maybe like in an upcoming episode, we can find like the best unknown Kinks fact.
Yeah. It's going to be comments that I get to read in the next episode at the top.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right. So do you want to start with fact one, or should I take it away?
Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Well, the band was formed by brothers Ray and Dave Davies in 1963 in northern London, originally called the Ravens.
Yes. Ray's 3 years older than Dave, and they were two boys, and their others were 2 of 8. The other 6 were girls.
Oh. So it left 2 younger brothers to be ultra competitive. So the name of the Kinks has conflicting stories, but some say it came from them dressing kinky. Others say management was looking for a name that was controversial but not vulgar. But it has been known that Ray Davies never liked the name of the band.
That's why Ray's so angry all the time. Imagine just having a name of your band you don't like. It'll make you beat up your brother.
Yeah. Well, I just thought that was kind of a British rock star thing. If you were British brothers in a band, like, you had to fight.
Well, Oasis fights. But you know what? It's not just Brits. I mean, look at the Black Crowes. Yeah. Those brothers fight all the time, too. So it's a brother thing.
As long as you make good music, it's worth it.
Exactly. Okay, number 2. The Kinks were one of the largest bands to come out of the British invasion, credited many artists with the beginning of punk. They also were the beginning of heavy metal and the beginning of the power chord. I mean, I won't do it again, but their third song they released, which became probably their biggest hit, "You Really Got Me," was actually covered by Van Halen, which was their first big hit. And basically, beginning of the power chord, which is the beginning of heavy metal, and basically the beginning of rock and roll as we know it, which is the Stones, the Who, the Yardbirds, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, everybody. It's rock and roll, it's heavy metal, it's punk. But here's some interesting facts. Rod Stewart, Jeff Beck group, tried out for the Kinks. And Charlie Watts once sat in and played drums on the band. in the band. Excuse me, wrong words of the on in.
Those are some heavy hitters to be associated with the Kinks, so it shows the talent level that they were playing.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of that talent level, Dave Davies is credited by many for inventing that new sound of guitar distortion. He was quoted saying, "I was very depressed and fooling around with a razor blade. I could easily have slashed my wrist, but I had a little green amplifier, an Eplico, that was sounding crap. I thought, I'll teach it, and I slashed the speaker cone. It changed the sound of my guitar. Then, when I wired it up to another amp, a Vox AC30, it made that a lot louder." This was the birth of metal power chords as we know them.
Yep. Here we go. Number 4. Their breakout song was "You Really Got Me." It was their third single on their opening album in 1964. The fresh-sounding guitar riffs quickly took them to number 1 in the charts in the UK and number 7 in the US. I mean, they were probably, they were right there after the Beatles and the Stones. The Kinks were kind of like batting third until they couldn't get along. Got banned in America.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those arena songs that you hear at sports, like that's on every playlist, like them, AC/DC, but you hear that at all of the stadiums.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of their troublemaking, the Kinks were not allowed to play in the USA for 4 years after their 1965 tour because promoters and union officials filed complaints over the Kinks' conduct, prompting the U.S. Musicians Union to withhold work permits from the band for the next 4 years, effectively banning them from U.S. performances.
That's what crushed them right in the middle of the British invasion. They couldn't mop up all the money that the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and every other great British band did. And it was too...
Because they mopped up somebody else backstage, is what I'm told.
Well, it was 2 real incidents. One happened when the drummer, Avery Ivory, he hit Dave over the head with a hi-hat. And he knocked him out cold, and he ran, and the cops were chasing him. And he thought he killed Dave. And then he ended up having to tell the cops, "Hey, it's just part of the show, mate." And the other thing that really got them banned, because you don't mess with Dick Clark in those days, Dick Clark had a show called the... Where the action is. And backstage, there was a little controversy, and one of the stagehands said, "All you Brits causing problems and you making derogatory slang words for Brits." I don't really know any of them, but they said just because the Beatles are good, none of you other guys are. So hands were thrown.
You got to talk it, you got to walk it.
Yeah,
That's how it goes.
So that's why they were suspended for 4 years, which really. Took them out for a while, but then they bounced back and had some big hits in the 60s and definitely big hits at the late 70s, early 80s.
Well, that bled into our fact number 6, that the Davies brothers' relationships was so competitive that they often fought physically. It wasn't just other members of the band, but the brothers too. And their managers had a protocol in the studio when a fight broke out that everyone was going to go for coffee for 15 or 20 minutes and just let the brothers slam, duke it out, do what they had to do, and then they would just start from scratch.
That's just hilarious. Like, we know what's going to happen. Hey, it's the original timeout.
Yes. But thankfully they were so successful, and everyone should know that they had multiple top 10 hits in the U.S., and they had 3 number 1 singles in the U.K., including "You Really Got Me," "Sunny Afternoon," and "Tired of Waiting for You."
It's funny. Those are some great ones. I love those. I also love the ones from the late 70s. "Destroyer," which is it brought back the power chord and got them back. And also, of course, "Come Dancing," which had a great, of course, it has the big rock and roll in the middle. It starts out a little soft and has the big power chord in the middle. One thing Dave Davies knows how to do is write a power chord, right up there with Keith Richards and Malcolm and Angus Young. Number 8, their hit song "Lola" is famous because they had to change the lyrics to have it sung on the BBC, because the original lyrics are "just like Coca-Cola," but because you can't have product placement nowadays, channels would love to have product placement and just be, "Hey, Coke, give us an extra 50 grand.
We'll fund this album with that lyric.
Right. Yeah. So the BBC had morals at that point, or standards, I guess, and they made them change the name to Cherry Cola. But they're still live. They would always sing it as Coca-Cola. And I remember as a kid on the radio, sometimes it'd be the Coca-Cola version and sometimes it'd be the Cherry Cola version, depending on maybe what album, it was the British album or the UK album. It was almost one of those things where, like, is it the Bernstein Bears or the Bernstein Bears? Like, you never really knew what the official, like, I thought it was Coca-Cola, but no, but this time it was Cherry Cola.
A little Mandela effect going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the Kinks were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990. That's one of the big moments that everyone should know about. And then also in 2012, Ray Davies came back and played the Sunset Waterloo to close out the London Olympic Games. A huge honor for the band.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. The Olympics were closed. I mean, we had Lionel Richie closing out. I remember when I was a kid in 1984, closed out like the Olympics. So it's a big deal.
Absolutely. Like, you're representing your country for music. Like, you're around the best of the best in everything else. You got to really feel yourself if you're there for the Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like because they didn't pick the Beatles or the Stones. They picked Ray Davies.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive, Ray. Maybe they thought him and his brother were going to join the boxing team.
Well, it was an honor for them to play the Olympics, and it was probably an honor to host the Midnight Special, which was June 7th, 1974, with guest appearances from ELO, Rory Gallagher, Buddy Miles, Alan Price, Suzi Quatro, and of course the lovable Wolfman Jack was there.
It was an incredible episode. I mean, I enjoy them all, but I really was rocking to this one. And I think the crowd seemed more insane than usual.
Yeah, Buddy Miles had them on their feet. And you can tell in the comments section and the amount of views on this episode that everyone else really liked this one too, because it's up there as one of our most popular episodes, I'd say.
I mean, it comes out, they come out smoking with You Really Got Me. I mean...
And I appreciate that he introduced everyone also. Like, he introduced every member there, the original members, the new members on the stage, everyone. And that's something that was great about the show. Not every band does that, and a lot of the comments I see are, who's this? Who's playing this? Who's playing that? So for him to really say, this is our moment, especially on American TV, and they've been blackballed from America a lot, to say, hey, this is our band, this is everybody, we're taking our time, felt like big rock star energy, and I liked it.
Well, there's a couple of things I thought, too, was first of all, his outfits, I will say outfits, were amazing. He had more costume changes than Cher.
That's one of the things that they were known for. Very, very camp.
Yeah, very fun. And also, usually you think of the Kinks, they're a 4-piece band, a 5-piece band at most. They had a horn section, and they also had 2 ladies singing. I mean, it was a full-on review.
Absolutely.
And they brought, I mean, Buddy Miles, you have to know from the band The Gypsies, for the Jimi Hendrix band The Gypsies. So he's got funk and soul and rock and roll. And then Rory Gallagher, are you kidding me?
Showstopper.
Absolutely destruction. And I think I said when we talked about B.B. King's episode, the blues episode, the one thing they didn't really showcase was the slide blues. And Rory just pours it on with the slide blues. And then ELO is always just masterful. Showdown, how do you go from You Really Got Me to Showdown? It was just like bam, bam, punch in the face. And then the other thing that I really, really loved is Suzi Quatro. I mean, I love chick rock and roll. She's like the original Joan Jett. She's wearing the leather. Glycerine Queen. Are you kidding me? What an episode, Mike.
This show literally could have just been a mixtape. Like, the hits that were on it, there was very few skips. The only skip maybe was Alan Price, and it was funny to listen to the way Ray Davies introduced him in the movie he was in and said, maybe you've seen it, I haven't, but it was also big rock star energy.
Yeah, I'm always, I accentuate the positive, I'm not, I go to negative, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was the one out of like all the big hits to where it's like, oh, that's a tough act to follow, and he was the one who felt it.
Well, it's literally one of these things where, like, when you say a comic, if you just say he's a really good guy,
oh yeah,
and you don't say he's funny. But in his defense, though, he was out there with like a baby grand piano when he's competing against ELO and Buddy Miles and the Kinks.
Yeah, so everyone else is on their feet shaking. He was the one like breath of air where everyone had to like, okay, breathe. And it might have been the bathroom break. I don't know.
He brought a sharp scissors to a gunfight.
Yeah, well, I appreciated Ray Davies' deadpan humor throughout the episode, and it kind of reminded me of this is why people can host Saturday Night Live. Like, they have it in them to do some little comedic hosting and riffing, and I appreciated that.
Oh, I thought Ray did a marvelous job. He really did, and he had charisma. It was fantastic. And his band, like I said, the Kinks are just used to like Paranoia, Destroyer, and just rock and roll. But I love the funk and the soul that they had with the horns and the singing.
Yeah, Suzi Quatro also did a cover of Elvis's "All Shook Up," which I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Anything that I can know all the words to already, I like those. Those are always a bop for me.
She brought.
All right. Well, the Kinks returned May 6, 1977 for a Helen Reddy hosted episode where they performed Sleepwalker and jukebox music. So it's good to have them back on the show at least one more time.
Helen Reddy loves to get in the mix with these rock stars.
She hosted so many episodes, like she was almost on as much as Wolfman, it feels like.
I know. It's always like her collaborations are just nuts who she's rocking out with.
Yeah. I mean, she's almost the Kelly Clarkson of her day, getting to do so many different covers, so many different songs. Let me rephrase that. Kelly Clarkson might be the Helen Reddy of today. Put some respect backwards.
There you go.
Yeah, but the way they both host very well, perform other people's music with them very well, can chameleon across different genres. It's very respectable.
Well, talent's talent, and Helen Reddy had a great singing voice, so you can throw that on anything. It's like hot sauce.
Well, let's get into our favorite part of the show, the guest submissions.
There we go. Okay, Friday music official -MQ6HT. I don't want music official -MT or whatever screwed up. I want to make sure he knows it's him.
Right.
I worked with them during their tenure at MCA. Great group of professionals and truly one of the greatest bands of all time. Later on, I reissued all of their classic Arista era albums here at Friday Music. Well, look at that. He's Mr. Friday Music. Well, thank you for reissuing because that stuff needs to keep out there.
Yes. John Shields, the Beatles broke the door wide open for British music into America. I was 5 when they first came here. Soon after, the Kinks, Stones, and many others followed in their wake. Kinks had a few huge hits, and I loved them, and I still do.
Yeah. The Kinks have so many bands covered the Kinks. Besides Van Halen, you had like the Romantics, the Knack, the Jam.
I bet they're in the special thanks in so many different albums. Like if you go through and look of all the things that were inspired, I bet they're in all sorts of them.
When you think about the song You Really Got Me, it is so iconic. I mean, it's one of the first 3 songs that everyone learns on guitar.
I want to say I remember hearing big bands play it at college events too, because it's something that the horn section can kind of get at with the trombones and tubas and everybody.
Right.
And you could have a big band play that. And I think I remember at Illinois State basketball games, maybe hearing the Kinks.
Oh, absolutely. Marching bands play You Really Got Me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it fires up to 15-year-old kids carrying the big tuba around. So you got to have a little Davies action. Okay, Lewis Musser 7184. The Kinks. You Really Got Me. And All Day and All the Night took the British invasion to the next level. Absolutely, Lewis. The Midnight Special appearance during their theatrical period of Preservation Act 1 and 2. That's why Money Talks was performed. It wasn't until Schoolboys in Disgrace in 75 that the band got back to their chunky rock and roll sound, which helped propel them to eventually become a huge arena attraction and one of the best live bands ever. Yes, God save the Kinks. See, that's when it came back in the late 70s, early 80s. That's really when I got into the Kinks because it was right before heavy metal. So you still just kind of had the hard rock. And that's why I just love the AC/DCs, the Aerosmiths, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks. It's Van Halen. I love it.
All right.
You can say this one.
La Fiche au Chocolat. Oh. I think I pulled it off.
I think you did too.
First time I had ever heard of the Kinks was while looking for a new concept album to listen to when an album called Arthur, or The Decline and Fall of the British Empire, caught my attention. And since then, I have loved listening to the Kinks.
It's so funny about that album. That is one of those albums that either people love it or they hate it.
But this is just another artist who found their inspiration by listening to the Kinks.
Oh, yeah. I'm not even giving my opinion because I don't really have an opinion because I'm too young to know when it came out. I just know the hits, not the hits. But just doing research for this show, it's like some people thought it was masterful and some people were like, just, it's like today, the internet,
It's nice that I picture this person doing their homework to go and try and find a specific sound and having to go back to the originators of it and getting to the Kinks and going through their albums and then seeing where that historically translates out down the tree of music.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, David Garone, 2206. Can anyone imagine today or TV or the internet streaming with a show like this? No. That's what makes... Thank you, Bert Sugarman. That's why it's so great. That's why everyone loves it so much. And they're making this YouTube channel alive. Is because you can't beat it. All right, I'll get back to the email now. Kinks, ELO, Buddy Miles, Rory Gallagher. Exactly. My God. How lucky we youngsters at 70s were at living that music. Unrepeatable. Yeah, it really was a tour de force episode.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Music's changed so much that you're able to find things streaming, and it's eclectic and it's great, but there was a time where, I mean, I don't want to say you were forced to listen to things, but people heard a lot more of the same stuff, and to catch a vibe and find a vein and just take off, like, was so difficult. But when someone did, like through the British invasion, everyone would know these songs, and I mean everyone, and the Kinks were one of those.
Right. I mean, the guys that programmed your radio stations, that they controlled your music.
Yeah, and I think now that everyone can kind of go their own way, we have this great option to have all of these different flavors of music of things, but there's less like big staples that we all hold on to as like the classics. Like, what are the classics from today's generations of music? And we'll know in 20 years, but I can't name them now like you could back then. Like,
well, that's why, without getting into it, I mean, that's why the touring industry, that's why there's so many festivals. Because only the bands, only like AC/DC and the Stones and the lady who's dating the chief,
Miss Taylor Swift.
Only so many bands can hold stadiums, whereas 10, 15 years ago, 10 bands could fill stadiums.
Right. Yeah, and during the British invasion, everyone from Britain could fill a stadium.
Yeah, every British invasion band filled stadiums in the 70s.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what it was. There was so much more of a community around the music because it wasn't so easily accessible. And it's beautiful that it is easily accessible now, but you see why the Midnight Special would even play repeats. Like, ELO plays Showdown on multiple different episodes because you couldn't just pick up your phone and pull up Spotify and listen to Showdown whenever you wanted to. So Bert had to make sure once a month you got your Showdown because you needed it.
Right, and no one had VCRs in 74 either, so it wasn't like you could record it and own it.
Mm-hmm. ELO was probably on the Midnight Special about more than any other band. Between them and Gladys Knight and the Pips, they're both up there, and it's because they had hits that everyone needed to hear.
What I love about these Midnight Special shows is I really have a diverse interest in all different types of music. I love all different types of music. And even on my iPhone, I have so many different types of music and so many songs. So I love how this episode was just all kinds of different types of music.
Right. And this one was punk. And then we've also had the Midnight Blues Special. And we've had British Invasion. Like, Bert was on top of it. He had it all.
We had the Bee Gees.
One of our best episodes, actually not one of, our best performing episode was actually our first ever country music special.
I can't wait to do that episode.
We will. Well, let's get back to the comments and wrap this up for everyone. We can't leave out Alan. So, wow, it's great to see the Kinks' Ray Davies playing harmonica on several of these tracks. I saw the Kinks 9 times and have gone through any number of Kinks videos on YouTube, and I haven't seen him play the harmonica. This video is a keeper for lots of reasons, and that's one of them.
I agree with Alan completely. I didn't even know he played harmonica. I mean, he pulled a little Mick Jagger action out there, and that's what made it so interesting about having the kind of the funky version of these songs is he was playing harmonica. It was fabulous.
Yeah, there's so many original versions, original duets, different things you got to see in the live performances on the Midnight Special that you might not have got to see any other way.
Oh, yeah, and just the different people jamming together is another thing that you very rarely saw because when they tour, they're in different cities. So when they all come together on the same stage or hanging out backstage, hey, I'll come out and jam out with you. It's fabulous. And I just think having these bands come on, like having ELO come on every month is fabulous because if you're in a city, if you're lucky enough to live in a big enough city where they come once a year, but if not, they may come every 3 years or maybe never. But you get to see them live on your TV once a month. That's fabulous.
And we take for granted that this was one of the first shows that actually had them live singing their songs as opposed to lip sync dubs and performing over the tracks.
I think I said this on the first episode. I think that's one of the best things about the Midnight Special is they perform live, and you can not to see the mistakes, but just to have it sound different than the record. Because I'm not going to name the shows or the competition, but there's nothing worse than seeing the bands when the record stops and they're like looking around. I grew up in that era where you could just tell it was fake.
Yeah, it was great to see so many things live because there's that performance that was infamous of Michelle Williams on the Ed Sullivan Show eating a banana in 1967, showing that she clearly wasn't singing and wanted people to know.
Well, I wonder if she got in trouble with Mr. Sullivan because he's been known to be madder at people for, I think, lesser offenses.
Yeah.
I don't have to get into the top 10 things Ed Sullivan got mad about, but there are a lot of infamous things.
Well, we're happy that we had the live music on the Midnight Special.
Happy about everything about the Midnight Special. And if you're happy as we are, you should get our merch at our store. You can get the hat, you can get the mug, you can get the hoodie. It's getting a little chilly outside now, and the hoodie looks sweet. And become a YouTube member for $4.99. You get to see the Midnight Special episodes every Monday morning, and join our live chats every Friday night for our weekly episodes of the Midnight Special. Yeah, I gotta get a hoodie. It's getting chilly, and the hoodies look sweet. And the trucker hats look sweet, too. We want to thank you for all your submissions. Please keep sending them into the Midnight Special Podcast at gmail.com or message us on social media. For Mike Nell, and I want to thank Bert Sugarman, and, of course, Mary Hart, and everyone who watches and listens to us. We love all of our fans. The holiday season's coming up. Be safe. Be sound, be happy. We thank you for listening. I'm Joe Bartnick. Keep rocking and rolling out there with the Midnight Special.